I think we are going to start. Um, so good afternoon and welcome. I'm so glad you were able to join us for our real estate webinar, A Guide to Selling in the Spring. My name is Andrea Moraski, and I work at Riverwoods in Manchester. Today, our special guest speaker and expert in the field of real estate is Bill Weidacher of Keller Williams in Bedford. Before we get started, I want to get through a little light housekeeping. We love questions, but you're muted for this presentation. So please submit all your questions to the Q&A tab, either at the bottom or the top of the presentation, depending on the device you're using. There will be time at the end of the presentation to answer all questions. We love to find ways to improve everything we do at Riverwoods. Your suggestions are welcome on what we can do better next time. Please share any ideas with us that you're interested in learning about. We are always excited to explore new topics. We are recording this webinar and we'll send you a copy when it's available. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about Riverwoods. Riverwoods has a rich history in caring about people, bringing community, purpose, and peace of mind to independent adults. Mariana Hatch and Rosemary Coffin, shown here, are the founders of Riverwoods. These two visionary women wanted a better way for people to be able to transition through the retirement years, a place where the stressors of everyday life are taken care of for you, and you get to enjoy a vibrant, independent lifestyle every day. Residents living at Riverwoods have the security of knowing that if they need health care in the future, they can transition to higher levels of care right within the community. Riverwoods is known for innovation, quality, and person-centered care, where you will experience dignity and respect throughout your time at Riverwoods. Riverwood's three sister communities are Exeter, Manchester, and Durham. You will find the same vision and values on each of our campuses, with each campus exhibiting its own personality and style. Riverwoods is a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community, CCRC, also known as a life plan community. Riverwoods is an insurance product regulated by the state of New Hampshire. Your decision to enter into one of our three communities while you're living independently will give you peace of mind to stay in control of your life, providing dining options and a wide range of activities and programs. Okay, what's new in our Durham campus? It's a 55 new apartment home expansion, including a new community center. We're expecting the new apartment homes to be open at the end of 2027. And Exeter and Manchester are both in the process of refreshing common areas in each community. Please feel free to reach out to any of our sales counselors if you have any additional questions about Riverwoods. So, okay, we made it through Riverwoods. Now I'd like to introduce Bill Weidacher. Bill is a two-time president of the New Hampshire Association of Realtors, and he was in 1995 and 2013, and has served on the National Association of Realtors in capacity of regional vice president in 2024. He has held numerous leadership roles at the local, state, and national association. Bill has called New Hampshire home since he was 5 years old and has worked in residential real estate for more than 40 years, which is really hard to believe since he's only 45. In 2004, he was a founding partner of Keller Williams Metropolitan in Bedford, where he still works as a partner at Fine Homes Group International. He and his wife, Diane Davidson, his partner at Fine Homes Group, live in Manchester. Well, welcome, Bill.
Well, Andrea, thank you. Thank you very much. And it does seem like just the other day when I was making my very first presentation to the Riverwoods community 10 years ago. And to give some context, it seems like the other day when I became licensed in the state of New Hampshire to be a realtor, and that was 1983. So 43 years goes by in a heartbeat. As they say, the days are long, but the years are short. And I'm privileged to continue the partnership with the Riverwoods community to talk about real estate. And today's program, we're going to cover a handful of things. We're going to talk about the market history and conditions. We're going to, in years past, we were sort of very heavy on statistics, and we've lightened that up a little bit to give some more conversation in and around the process itself and what what maneuvering from one property to another might look like. We're going to talk about market history, conditions, pricing, inventory here in the state of New Hampshire, the process of home buying and selling a home. Some of the common questions that many of you may have, we're going to look to cover in some of these slides. And then, of course, the reality of downsizing in today's world. And then last, preparing a home for sale in the marketplace today. And the market outlook in general going forward, and what you can anticipate as property owners that might be considering selling and moving to a continuing care community like Riverwoods. So first and foremost, the big picture is the median price. So single family residential prices in 2025 last year reached a historic high, $535,000. And that was 14 consecutive years of the prices going up. And to give some context as to what that looks like, prices have more than doubled since 2012, 165% increase. And the first 2 months of 2026, we've seen a 4% increase as well versus the same 2 months of last year. So prices continue to rise, and that a lot of that's driven by inventory, which we're going to get into. But this gives you an idea, this graph, of what the median price looks like in terms of sales in the state of New Hampshire. Now, I think the most important thing for you to look at here is the trend line, and this just goes back 10 years. And you can see that the black trend line really gives you an indication that prices for the state of New Hampshire was under $200,000 in 2016. And again, we reached a 535 median price in 2025. The red, gold, and blue lines are nothing more than we chose three counties, and we chose the three most populous counties in southern New Hampshire to give you some indication as to what things look like. The red being Rockingham, the gold being Hillsborough County, and then the blue being Merrimack County. But to take anything away from this slide is really just to see that prices across all three counties and the state have gone in one direction over the last 10 years, and that's steadily up. The big picture for us is that we are not currently in a balanced market and haven't been since 10 years ago, 2016. To bring some context to what a balanced market looks like, it is about 5 to 7 months worth of inventory on the market. Right now, we're under 2 months worth of supply, and we've been below 3 months since prior to the pandemic, 2019. So we were really, as I said, last balanced market was 2016. Right now, in southern New Hampshire, there's 535 houses on the market. Now, to give you a little bit of context, what that might look like, in total in the entire state as of this morning, there were 1,345 single-family homes on the market. And I just picked at random. I picked the city of Manchester to sort of say, okay, let's pick the largest city And if you were looking to buy a home in Manchester today, there'd be 25 houses to choose from. Now, Manchester is a city of 110,000 people. There's 25 houses on the market. And if that's across all price ranges. So that really gives you an idea that there really is not enough supply on the market currently. Now, for you as a property owner, that's good news because that's helped to keep a firm foundation on pricing in the marketplace. The last balanced market, as I said, was October of 2016 with 3,000 homes on the market. And we are, as I said this morning, 1,300 in the state of New Hampshire. This graphic here is, there's no clearer way to show you what inventory looks like than to say, all right, this goes back to 2007. And you can see in the beginning as well as throughout the financial crisis up till about 2013 when we started to see some relief. We had as much as 15 months worth of supply. So we're under 2 months worth of supply today. That really gives you an idea. You can see a steady decrease all the way through 2019, and then the pandemic and COVID-19 and what that brought about is we really have not gotten over 2.5 months worth of supply since that time. There's a reason for all of this. New Hampshire, first of all, back during the pandemic, we saw people moving from other parts of the country because they could not go to work. They had to stay at home and work. And once people realized, hey, I can work from home, they started to think maybe I'd like to be in a home that I'd like to be in more than the home I'm in now. And New Hampshire became in the crosshairs of popularity and still is today for a lot of reasons. Number one, close to Boston and being able to travel outside to anywhere in the country from Logan Airport, of course, and also proximity to great health care in the city of Boston. No state income tax here in the Granite State, as well as a great quality of life. Really attractive communities and schools have added to the popularity, and that should say remote work flexibility. As much as I'd like to think I'd catch everything on spell check, this is an exercise in humility from time to time. So remote work flexibility, meaning for most of the state, being able to work from home is an answer. There are parts of the Granite State still that have some difficulty with high-speed internet, but that's getting better every day. Here's what buyers are looking for in the marketplace today. What we see, some of the common things. They are, even with older homes, popular for buyers is a kitchen that's updated, bathrooms that are updated. They like the idea of energy efficient homes. It is not a hill that most buyers are willing to sacrifice on, but they like the idea of newer heating plants, more insulation, better windows than older properties. Home office spaces have been something that are certainly more popular today than they were a half a dozen years ago. And part of that reason, as I said, is people have found that working from home is an answer for them. If not all the time, certainly a few days a week. Many people are working from their house. A manageability of a property is something that is popular for people. They like the idea of maintenance being as low as possible. And then this outdoor space, it doesn't mean more land necessarily. It means more utilization of the land that they do buy. They love the idea of large patios, outdoor kitchens, things of that nature are far more popular today than when I started in the business 43 years ago. For all of you that are property owners, which I'm guessing is the vast majority of you, there is this great thing called home equity. And we've all been the beneficiaries of that if we've owned a property in the last dozen years or more than that. We've seen 2 decades of major appreciation, double digits in many cases. And the great thing about home equity is that it supports for us now some lifestyle decisions. A recent statistic show that 40% of the homeowners in the country, and this was surprising to me, 40% of the homeowners own their home without a mortgage. So close to half of the people in the country that own a home own it without a mortgage. And so home equity does allow for a lot of flexibility of lifestyle decisions. Here are some of the common questions that homeowners that are transitioning ask. Is now a good time to sell? And, I used to joke and say it's always a good time to sell, but that's not really an accurate answer because is it a good time to sell is really up to the homeowner and up to you. Uh, I say it this way: nobody just sells a home. They don't. They sell a home because. And it's the because that drives those decisions. Some people sell a home because they're being relocated to another part of the country for their job. Some people are moving because of family. Others are needing a bigger home or a smaller home. Others are, there's a health concern and they're not able to care for the property. There's lots of reasons because that drive whether it's a good time to sell. Now, economically speaking, from a property ownership perspective, we're in a great economic environment to sell because there's still plenty of demand. Prices are continue to be at record highs, and so yeah, it really comes down to do the other decisions driving a desire to sell because support the decision to sell in this current economic environment. That's up to you. Should we sell before or after moving? Again, that is a singular decision that only you can make, uh, because some of you are needing equity to make your next move, which might require selling the home prior. But that really is a one-on-one discussion at the time you're seriously considering it. What if the home needs repairs? I think, again, it really depends on the level of repair necessary and whether or not it affects current marketability. So if somebody needs a brand new roof, um, that may be a decision. You say, well, we don't want to spend the money on a brand new roof. Well, that can be a when going to market decision that you make with your real estate professional. How long does the process take? Another big question that we get from folks, especially those thinking about a continuing care community, because sometimes when the opportunity presents itself, you're on a kind of a tight timeline. So I talk about this. There is a difference between ready to move and preparing to move. Preparedness is not readiness because you may be ready to sell your home, but if you're not prepared, you're not really ready. And being prepared means this: it doesn't matter when I'm ready, I'm prepared. And so when the time comes, I can do it on a moment's notice. Last question. We get this a lot, especially in folks that have been in a property for a long time and are transitioning possibly to a continuing care community. And that is, can I sell my home as is? And the short answer to that is yes, you can. There's no burden upon doing anything to your home. You can always sell it in its current condition. And that is, again, that's sort of a game time decision as you're going through the preparedness stage. Like, is there things that we would benefit from doing versus not? And we're never strong advocates of spending money just to spend money to make that same money back. And what I mean by that is can you invest some money into your home and get a return that exceeds the money you've invested? And that is really part of what we might talk about later in some detail if some of the questions some of the questions drive us that way today. So downsizing is more than just selling, as many of you are either beginning to find out or going to find out. For those of us that have been in our homes for decades, we know we've got lots of things we've saved, and in some cases, lots of things we've saved for others. One of the big one of the big surprises that my wife and I, came that sort of hit us, square in the face, that we've been saving lots of things for our kids over the years. I don't want to get rid of this. The kids will want it. Or I'm not going to get rid of the trophies because the kids will want their trophies. And I got news for you. If you have kids and your kids are like our kids, they want none of it. They're like, yeah, thanks, mom. Thanks, dad. But yeah, you can keep it. So, and part of that is there is some emotional attachment to things that we've carried with us for the last several decades, and some of it is emotionally attached to our kids. Some of it is emotionally attached to the generation before us. So there is more than just selling a property. There's some coordination with family members as well, especially if things are going to be gifted to them. There's a bit of that. There's a lot of moving targets. The logistics of moving is also, many of you may not have moved for a long time, and the last time you moved may have been significantly easier because you had less belongings and you've accumulated things over the years. So there is that moving target of the logistics of planning to move and the timing of that. I am going to say this today, and this I probably should have just made a slide and made it all capitals. Resist over renovating. There are times where we will get to a potential client who we've not met. They'll call us up and we'll come to visit, and they will have spent all kinds of money on things that really don't matter. And they did it only because they thought it would matter in marketing the property and would not have done it otherwise. So we're going to suggest that if you're going to potentially do some renovations for the sole purpose of marketing your home, you consult with a real estate professional beforehand. We can save you some money, or figure out a way for you to achieve some of the things you're looking for less money than what you're prepared to spend. Preparing a home for sale. Now you hear some of the classic things in the marketplace today, and I think part of it is because of four letters: HCTV. Many of us have been exposed to many real estate shows over the years, and I think lots of property owners have learned what marketing a home might look like, at least in TV land. And I will tell you that some of that is real and a lot of it is not. But decluttering would be one of those things. I am going to just throw a caveat out there. You'll hear we get a lot of folks that will come to us and say, I know we've got to take all of our pictures off the wall. That's not true. That is absolutely not. We got to take all of our personal belongings out. We've got to depersonalize the home. And that could not be further from the truth. Decluttering is one thing. Depersonalization is not the answer. Because I will tell you, if you've gone to model homes that builders are building, you'll notice they have pictures on the wall of people that don't exist. They have things that look like people are living in the bedrooms that don't. It's a model home. Why? Because it elicits a feeling. And so taking all personalization out of a property can remove the soul of a home. We will say we want your home to have a feeling and soul when a buyer comes in, so that when they're walking in, they're going to say, this is how I'm going to live. This makes me feel good. So preparing a home for sale might mean some cosmetic improvements or some minor repairs. We're in favor of that, because there's also a saying in our business, and that is people judge what they can't see by what they can see. Think of it this way. As you're walking into a home to buy, possibly, and the walkway is the bricks are out of place, and the front door needs a coat of paint, and the front porch decking is all sort of the paint's flaking and cracking and in need of work. Whether you recognize it or not, subconsciously you're starting to make decisions. This place needs a lot of work. Or worse, you might say, if this is the way it looks on the outside, what have they been neglecting in the systems of the home? So minor repairs and cosmetic improvements can go a long, long way. Good photography, I think, is important today. Many of you have spent some time looking at some of the third-party real estate sites like Realtor.com, Homes.com, Zillow. You've looked at properties, and some the photography is very, very good, and others you think, my goodness, I could take better pictures than that. Some have been taken with a phone, and are maybe not quite on level. You're going, were they tilted when they took this photograph, or bad lighting? You get my point. Or worse, pictures where they just raced to get it on the market, and there's lots of clutter all around on the countertops or laundry on the floor. It's a good photography can go a long, long way, because today the first showing of your property is going to happen online. People are going to make a decision whether they want to see it physically by what they see on the online representation. And then, of course, a discussion about pricing and marketing. I will just say this about pricing. Today, there are many ways to get an estimate of a value. Some of you have looked at your Zestimate. Some of you have looked at your assessment based on your property tax assessment. Some of you have looked at other automated valuation models and got an idea of pricing. Here's what I will tell you. I ask this question. People will say, well, I know what my property's worth because I've seen 3 different automated valuation models. They've all told me it's going to be around $600,000, $700,000. And I'll say, well, how long have you been there? And in many cases, it's 20, 30 years. And I'll say, have you done any work to the property at all? Renovations of any sort in that time? Oh, sure. And I'll say, well, then it's a pretty good chance that the automated valuation models are not very useful, because they may not have taken all of that into account. How could they in some cases? So pricing is a discussion that we will have with our potential clients, because it really comes down to this. Pricing today is not going to determine pricing tomorrow. We've seen you could have gotten a price what your house was worth 18 months ago, and as a really good chance in New Hampshire that home is worth more today than it was then. I would bet on it. And so pricing is really a discussion for the moment in time you're thinking of putting your home on the market. And so we have discussions with folks that could be 2 years away from being ready to put their home on the market. And we're talking about pricing in a general sense and showing them what they would compete with should they come on the market right now. Because I look at it this way. What does your competition tell you about what's happening in the market? We call it competition-based pricing. Sales data is helpful. The current competitive market is also helpful. And then marketing is this. What will you do besides photographs to help me get my home sold for the best value I can get? Timing. How long do things take? The initial consultation, I'm a big believer. I do a radio show every week, and I'm on 610 WGIR, and Saturday mornings I get into this and I say the initial consultation can happen months before you're ready, a year before you're ready, in some cases, 2, 3 years before you're ready. There's no bad time to have a consultation because here's the point. There's no stress in that. You're literally you're interviewing the potential uh, professional you're going to hire. You're getting into discussions about what the timing might look like. All of those things happen in an initial consultation, even including what should we do when we actually put our home on the market in terms of preparation. And then, of course, when you're ready to list the property for sale, that in and of itself is we look at what the current days on market are in the marketplace, and you can get a pretty good sense as to what things are. So currently, your average days on market are 30, 40 days on the market, and that's average. So you know that there are some homes selling much more quickly than that to come up with an average somewhere around a month in time. What the offer process looks like, because all of these timelines that we've just talked about prior to receiving offers can take place, up until listing the property can take place months or years in advance. Listing the house is when you're actually ready to kind of discuss moving. And then the offer process, once you get offers, how long does it take to sell? So a general rule of thumb is from the time you accept an offer to close on your home, it could be 45, 60 days in this current environment. But it could be longer than that if you want that to be the case, because you can drive a lot of those decisions because the inventory is so low. We've sold homes and people have been able to stay in their house after closing for several months while they're waiting to move to their next location. And then the timing of the closing process, as I said, it's about 45 to 60 days on average in an average sale. But all of that is up for negotiation. And you are in the driver's seat as a seller in this current market. The market outlook is really this. There is still plenty of demand. I do a part of my morning routine is to log into our multiple listing service that shows me what's happened overnight. And I look to see what's come on the market overnight, what's sold overnight. And I do this, I actually look every single day for the last 7 days. And you think, well, what does that mean, Bill? You look every day for the last 7 days. I look back on a weekly basis every single day because it sort of takes the wobbles out of the market. Because I know that more listings come on the market on Thursdays and Friday than any other days of the week. So the listing inventory is going to be a little higher on Thursdays and Fridays. And if I only look for that day, I'm going to get kind of a sense that, wow, there's a lot coming on the market. But Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and of course the weekends, not so much. So I look back for 7 days, regardless of the day of the week. And that also tells me what's gone under agreement. And so when I looked this morning, I know that for every new listing that came on the market today, I mean, in the last 7 days, there's been 1.3 properties that have gone under agreement. So you can see there's more buyers buying on a daily basis than there are sellers listing. So that's good news for you. Inventory is gradually improving. And I will say that for the last 6 years, the seasonality of the real estate market disappeared. There was no like, should we put it on the market in the spring because it's going to be better in the spring? Should we put it, should we wait? Should we this? There was no season. The market was just constantly in demand and buyers willing to buy regardless of the weather, even regardless of the interest rates. It slowed things down a little bit, but it did not change the demand that was out there based on the inventory coming on. I do think because of that, this year was the first year where we anticipated more listings coming on the market, and we were proven incorrect because of the winter. It's the first time in 6 years where the winter played a role. And now, in part, I think we could all agree we had a pretty crazy couple of months of snow on the ground, and that stopped a lot of people from saying, "Oh, I'm going to wait until there's less than 4 feet of snow in my yard to put my home on the market." This year, above all, as I said, the winter came back to play a role in the market. Moderate price growth is continuing. I predicted last year that the double-digit appreciation of homes was going to come to a close, and that's in part because you can't sustain double-digit appreciation of single-family homes when there's single-digit increases in wages. At some point, affordability becomes an issue. So, to give you an idea, this is not in the agenda here, but in 2012, the median income earner in the state of New Hampshire was making 200% of what was necessary to buy a home. Think of that. They were making twice as much of what was necessary to afford a median priced home. That's great news. Now, today, that median income earner to afford a median priced home is making 59% of what is necessary. Hear that. That means you're going to need at least two incomes or a boatload of cash in order to buy a home and make it affordable at current prices. So we knew that prices and the growth of prices was going to slow down. And that's kind of where we're at now. We're back into the low single digits in terms of appreciation growth. I would say we will see less than 5% appreciation growth this year. Last slide I got for you here before we get to the potential for questions. This gives you an idea of what the market is still like in New Hampshire. This is Realtor.com's hot housing markets, and you can see that we are number one in hotness, and that's based on property views, days on market. There's a lot of reasons, but we still continue to be very popular. Now, Manchester, New Hampshire, one of the other top 10 it's not on this slide, but one of the other in the top 10 is the Concord marketplace. So you can really see that Hillsborough and Merrimack County are going to be very popular markets in order to sell in and buy in. Rockingham, if you're in Rockingham County, don't feel bad. Rockingham County, the only reason that has not made it into the top 10 is because the prices are so much higher. It's just harder to afford. And that prices in Rockingham County are high for a reason. Ocean. The seacoast drives those prices up. But we're still in a really hot market, which is good news for you, the property owner. And of course, what do you do to get ready? Choose a realtor. Determine what your home value is if you were going to put it on the market today. We do when I say inspect the physical plant, I'm not meaning do a home inspection. It's usually a walk around with your real estate professional, get an idea of what you might consider doing to prepare your home for the market when you're ready. And then, staging is a word that we use a lot, but it really is more property preparation. Sometimes it comes down to a little bit of decluttering and a little bit of paint. I'm a fan of great sayings, and one of the sayings that I've used over the years is paint is worth $50 in the can and thousands on the wall. And it really comes down to sometimes it's brightening things up. And people get this concept of staging, like we're going to have to move all of our furniture into a pod and then move other people's furniture in to stage the house. That isn't the case in the vast, vast majority of things. We'd rather use what you have than bringing other stuff in. And then, of course, we've got time for questions, and I'm happy to answer as many as we can get to, and we got plenty of time. So,
Perfect. Bill, there's lots and lots of questions.
Good.
Yeah. Great job. Thanks so
So
much. So,
I think I'm going to stop the share, but I'm going to look to see what that looks like because I think it might be just, it might make the screens a little bigger. There we go.
okay, perfect. All right.
Okay.
First question. Let me go back to the top. In choosing a realtor, what questions do you need to ask? What should they look for, and what are some of the red flags?
That's a good question.
Mm.
So I will tell you the questions I would ask. Number one is the question I would ask a current property owner is, what are you looking for in the realtor you hire? Now, some may answer, I have no idea. It's been 40 years since I moved into my home, and I haven't needed a realtor in all of that time. So I think experience matters, but it really comes down to this. I use this example a lot. Trust is the most important thing you can rely upon when you hire somebody. Competency as well, but trust is first. Because think of it this way: if you decide you're going to hire somebody to replace your roof, and you go out and you get 3 quotes, if I'm at a cocktail party or a barbecue and Andrea, you were to say to me, "Hey, we've decided to replace the roof at our house, and we got 3 quotes. We went with the least expensive quote. We can't trust them, but we're going to go with them anyway."
Oh, gee.
You see how that doesn't work so well. So I think you got to first and foremost be willing to interview individuals and get a sense of trust,
Perfect.
followed with competency. Because there are people that you could say, I trust this person implicitly, but they don't know the real estate business. They just got into it.
Yeah.
So that may be an issue. But I really feel like, what are the questions you ask? First of all, what are you going to do to sell my home? What do you think is going to be important when we sell the home? Over time, questions will come to you like, what's your track record look like? I am more, I will say this, I am more a believer in trust and competency than I am um, somebody that lives nearby. Because you'll hear people that will say, well, we went with so and so because they live in the same town we live in. Um, that isn't necessarily always the best decision. It might be if you trust them and they're competent and they can get the job done. That could be just the extra thing that helps you there. But ultimately, it is a combination of all of those things, Andrea.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Next question is, once there's a contract, what negotiation strategies are effective in selling during a short time period? Is it a good idea to not have contingencies, but to have a cash offer?
Um, that's a good, that again is, these are good
Yeah,
questions. So,
yeah, they are.
um, cash is this. It is the removal of one condition in what may other offers may have, and that's a financing contingency. We want to buy your home, but it's conditional upon us being able to get a mortgage. If somebody says we want to buy your home and we are not going to get a mortgage, it's cash. Oh, that's good, right? You go, that's pretty cool. But that's with all things being equal, cash is going to be more king than maybe a mortgage condition. But invariably, things are not always equal. But I would much rather, as a property owner, I would much rather sell my home to somebody who has no condition for financing and willing to pay cash, because I know that's one less thing for me to be concerned with. But I would be more willing to sell my home to someone with a mortgage condition if they were willing to pay me more than the cash offer. Does that make sense?
That's
So
great.
you
Yeah,
you really
absolutely.
have to weigh those those two things against each other. Now, if somebody's got a mortgage condition, what are the things that we could do to maybe make that mortgage condition more favorable? Like, for instance, if you're going to sell a home to somebody that's getting a mortgage, um, they're probably going to need a property appraisal for the bank. A lot of realtors out there aren't aware of this, and certainly a lot of home sellers are not aware. But there are many properties that qualify for an appraisal waiver. So no need for an appraisal depending on the buyer and depending on the property. So oftentimes that is really nothing more than just a question that we ask the lending institution. Is there the availability of an appraisal waiver? That's one major condition that you take out of the financing condition. Also, are the folks approved for the mortgage already? Not pre-qualified, but approved. Because an approval is tantamount to saying, all right, we've checked their credit, we've verified their income, we've verified that they've got the cash to be able to buy, to put down against the mortgage. All of those things have issued an approval, and we've got an appraisal waiver. I'm willing to say, well, if the property offer is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars more, maybe we lean in that direction. Again, it's a game time decision, Andrea, based on the
Yeah,
offers that you got.
perfect. All right, our next question. Can we choose who we want to sell to? We would rather sell to a family than to an investor.
Yeah. So you have choices. The key thing that you've got to be really, really careful about, and this is again a question for your realtor, is fair housing. So, for instance, if you are excluding a family for the sole reason that you don't want to sell to somebody who has kids, that you have to be a little careful about. Now, if you're excluding an investor is not a member of the protected classes in the fair housing regulations. So you'd be okay in that particular case. So it really comes down to again a conversation with uh, with your realtor. But there's no reason why you can't, when you have multiple offers, that you can't choose um, who you want to sell to. You just have to be really careful about the idea of fair housing regulation. That's all.
And your realtor should be able to guide you in that.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. One of the most important parts of licensing is that we cover in pre-license schools is the fair housing regulations. It's very important.
Perfect. All right. In a recent downsizing webinar, the presenter said houses sell best and for a higher price if the house is completely empty. Do you agree?
False.
Goes back to what you just said about having personality and pictures on the wall and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and think of it this way: there are houses that are vacant that still have photos of what it might look like virtually staged. Where
Mm,
they add, you can virtually stage a house today by adding furniture and color schemes to the wall and things of that nature, um, to give someone an idea of what it might look like that way. Why? Because oftentimes folks have less vision than we think they do. People can walk into an empty house and go, I don't know. It we used to count, we consulted lending institutions back during the great financial crisis, and we would say to banks that had foreclosed, if you can keep the heat on in a house, now keep in mind, in many of these cases, houses were vacant. There wasn't anything there. It wasn't a choice. But we would say if you can keep the heat on in the house, we would prefer that you do that because people get a feeling when they're in a house.
mm,
And if they feel colder inside than they did outside, and in weather like, like we've experienced this winter,
yeah,
they don't know why they don't care for the property. They just don't care for the property.
right.
So there's lots of reasons, but vacant property, I don't agree. Now, on rare occasions, Andrea, there might be some properties out there where you go, you know what? I'd rather have all of this stuff out.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but yeah, in most
perfect.
cases, that's a false statement.
Okay, perfect.
I hope whoever recommended that was not a family member of the person that asked the question. I'm not looking to offend anyone.
All right. So next question is, I guess it's a question. Good return on investment to replace a propane fueled stove with an induction stove a year or two before selling home. I guess he wants to know if that's a good thing to do.
Um, it depends on the age of the stove. Meaning, is the stove at the end of its economic life, and does it look that way?
Yeah,
So if that's the case, then I would make the decision based on um, what you want to do for the next year or two for your own personal lifestyle. Because if
yeah,
you're going to be there for a year or two, you're going to get some use out of it. And if
yeah,
you'd rather have an induction stove, what is the differential between that and a propane or a gas stove? And I would say with a couple of years worth of time, do what you want, what you
yeah,
like, because you're going to get some use out of it as well.
perfect. All right, there's a question. I think you already answered this. Any advice on the seasonal timing to going on the market? You kind of indicated earlier that the seasons have pretty much gone away.
Yeah, for the most part, they have. And, we're coming into, there was an article in it was a piece in realtor.com that said the Goldilocks week of selling your home was April 12th to April 18th. Now they've narrowed it down to a week and like where it's just right. It'll be not too much inventory on the market, just the right amount on the market. And, it's springtime. I think it really comes down to this. Does that timing suit you? Because in this market that we're currently in, um, it really comes down to what works best for you. You are as a property owner, it comes down to timing for you. So there's no one good time anymore. And
No.
keep in mind, we definitely see more houses come on the market in the spring. We definitely do, which
Oh,
means you're competing against more houses.
yeah.
So I think it really is. When we've done the research, the winter months don't necessarily make you less money than the spring months. They don't.
Okay. So, and there's a couple of questions. So, please comment on the demand for lakefront property in the Lakes region in New Hampshire. And there's another question. It says, any concern about waterfront properties in relation to climate change, storms, floods, sea level rise, etc. So I think these are kind of a combined issue.
Well, for the any concerns that there may be out there from an environmental or an insurance standpoint, um, it's overridden by the vast demand that there is for waterfront and the even more um, exacerbated lack of supply.
Right.
There's only so much oceanfront and lakefront, and we're not, to borrow a very old cliche, we're not making any more of it. And so I don't think there's any concern there. What was the other part of the question, the beginning part?
Just, I guess, the desirability
Oh,
for
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Strong desirability continues. There's no doubt about it. The lake waterfront in general, and here's the one thing that we've seen is because the major lakes in the state, when you look at Sunapee, Newfound, Winnipesaukee, Winnisquam, the larger lakes, and the demand that has been put on them, and the pricing that has gotten to a point where it is unbelievably high. Much of the smaller waterfront properties have also benefited from that because essentially lots of real estate on the larger lakes are priced out. People have just been priced out of those markets because they're like only movie stars can buy them.
Yeah. Um, there's a Portsmouth, someone is looking to put their house on the market in Portsmouth, just same as what we were just talking about. What do you see in the next year for Portsmouth?
Continued demand,
Oh, yeah,
just not even enough houses. There was an article recently was about the amount of sales in January and I think it was January and February. It was a Seacoast Online article, and that prices had dropped from over $1 million to $700,000. And there's a good example of a headline being factually correct, but contextually missing because they were only using 22 in that period of time. There were only 22 sales in the entire county in that month. So you
hmm,
can't really base market trends on 22 houses. But I
yeah.
can tell you that Portsmouth continues to be in high demand. And if you're going to be moving in the next year, I see nothing on the horizon that's going to hurt you at all.
There's a question on condos. He said we've been talking about single family homes. What are you seeing about condos?
The condo market is benefited because of the residential market. Remember, I mentioned affordability.
Yeah,
So affordability at the median income earner is making 59% of what is necessary to afford the median priced single family home. That number is in the 70s for condominiums. Why? Because condominiums, the median price is less. They're still borrowing against with the same mortgage rates and that kind of thing. But because the pricing is better, the affordability is better. And so there's a lot of buyers out there that are buying condos candidly because that's what they can afford best. So if you own a condo and you're going to be selling in this market, there's no issue. There's no issue providing that your condominium is financeable, right? Because there are some condo projects that might have a financing issue for a lot of reasons, but the vast majority of condominium projects and neighborhoods and communities have no issue.
okay. I'm just looking at the time. There's still some really great questions here.
I'll stick
Um,
around.
oh, great. Thanks, Bill. So there's a question about the commission system, and commissions and what's owed, et cetera. The commission system is no longer in operation, correct? If yes, how does it work now regarding fees paid to realtors, sellers, and or buyers as it relates to what will the net proceeds be from our house?
I got it. Okay. So this is going to be a bit of a high wire act for me
Yeah,
because I want to answer the question as simply as possible. If we were sitting down together and having a discussion, we'd have much more time to
yeah,
answer the question. But I am going to give you an answer. And that is the commission system is no longer in operation, correct, is incorrect. Many, if not the vast majority of real estate agents that are going to represent you to sell your home are going to charge you a fee to do that. Unless they're, a family member or somebody that says, I'll handle it for free, or no charge to you. So that being the case, the question comes down to all fees are going to be negotiable between you and the person you decide to hire. They can elect to charge whatever they want to charge, and you can elect to hire them or not hire them. Now, there has been an unbundling that has taken place in the last handful of years because of a settlement that the National Association of Realtors entered into, and that is this: there used to be the real estate agent would say to a seller, "I'm going to charge X amount to sell your home, and I'm going to give a portion of that to a cooperating real estate agent that brings us a buyer. So I'm going to charge you a flat commission rate, and I will pay them out of what I collect for them to bring a buyer to the table, and then you'll pay no more than whatever the number is." And because of that settlement, now that is no longer the ability to offer that in the multiple listing system. There's no offering of a fee allowed on any of these portals that are out there. And so as a result now, either the buyer agent collects the fee directly from the buyer, or they collect it from the seller, or the real estate agent representing the seller in the offer to purchase. So to say that much has changed would be a little bit of an understatement, but also I will also say this. If you were to sit down with me, I think the commission discussion would be probably 10 to 15 minutes so that I'm comfortable that there's a full understanding with the property owner as to how it works. But to say that it's no longer part of the expense, that's not actually true.
Perfect. There's a great question. You mentioned about waiving the appraisal.
Yeah.
What are the conditions needed to meet to have an appraisal waiver?
Oftentimes it really comes down to the bank I'm not sure what their algorithm is, but they I think what it comes down to is condition of the property based on the assessment, whatever is available to the assessment cards, and then also the credit scores of the buyer. Because if they're borrowing more, I mean, if they're borrowing less, there's less of a reason to have an appraisal.
Got it.
Because the most important thing to remember about an appraisal is when a lending institution is lending money, they're lending money and they're asking an appraiser to certify reasonable value. And they're getting a copy of the offer, the purchase agreement. They see what the buyer is willing to pay. They see the written document. So they're there to just certify that there's a reasonable value to the property. But yet, we do see from time to time appraisers that say I can't certify its reasonable value. I think it's worth less. And so there is this potential for it to be a hurdle. So I would much rather see a waiver than an appraisal. But the vast majority of properties still sell with a mortgage and with an appraisal. It's just that if we can get you an appraisal waiver, we're going to work to try to do that. And some realtors aren't aware of that. And now you, as somebody attending here, may be more aware than the realtor you decide to hire. But it really comes down to this. It's a phone call to the lending institution to just double check. Hey, can this buyer and this property qualify for a appraisal waiver? So it is not just property specific, Andrea, and it is not just buyer specific. It's both.
It's the whole picture.
Correct.
Yeah. Someone is looking for a comment on the Stratford County market. What is that looking like right now?
All of the counties are in really great shape. So I picked those three counties, but the Stratford County market, because of it, because of what it borders, is, again, southern part of the state, very popular, no problem.
Great.
You know, it's interesting because if you think of one of the questions that we'll get from time to time is has a where has the largest percentage of appreciation happened in the state of New Hampshire? And in the last year, it happened in Coos County, which is the most northern county in the state. Why? Because it was also the most affordable. The median priced home in Coos County was roughly half of what it is in the state. So, it stood to gain the highest percentage of appreciation. All of the state is in really good shape. I do this because we gave you state numbers, but we picked three counties, and I picked the most populated counties only because they're the most populated counties, not because there are other counties that tell us a different story.
If you have, we still have many questions in the queue, but in the interest of time, I just think this one's very CCRC specific, particularly Riverwoods. This one is, you keep talking about the current market, which that's all we can talk about, but many of us are on the wait list predicted to be 2 to 5 years out. How do we plan for that kind of wait and prepare prepare appropriately? So, and it's very true. Some of our people on the wait list do expect to be on the wait list for 2 to 5 years. How can we help them kind of maneuver through this kind of market?
Well, some of your future residents have hired us, right? And we're waiting to put the home on the market until the timing is such that they get a
Yeah,
call and they say, you're ready, we're ready for you, or here's
yeah,
what your timeline looks like. Um, I think it comes down to comfort for each person that decides to move, because there's nothing to stop someone from putting their home on the market today and selling today. Other than, well, oh my goodness, I don't know when I'm going to get the call. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. And there's more stress in not knowing when they get the call, when they could alleviate at least the housing stress if they wanted to. I'm more of a, how do I put this? I would be, as a property owner, more of a gambler in this environment, meaning I'm willing to wait because I think properties are continuing to appreciate. And if I sell today and get a rental and I wait 2 years, or 5 years, then I've been in a rental and I might have given up all that appreciation. That's me.
yeah,
Now, can I speak for every potential client? No, there are some clients that say, I'd rather be ready at a moment's notice. And that really comes down to a much broader conversation. But ultimately, I don't see this market, barring, I say this on the radio all the time, barring cataclysmic events. If we get into another, like the financial crisis changed the world, in the real estate market overnight. I mean, we saw a 25% decrease in prices, in New Hampshire, but we saw it over a 5 year period. It didn't drop 25% on day one, but it did drop 25%. But barring cataclysmic events, and I couldn't even begin to predict what those might look like. But I've been through, since 1983, a handful of down real estate markets, and properties continue to sell. Last year, in spite of the fact that you think, my goodness, there was no inventory on the market, we sold close to 13,000 single family homes last year in the state of New Hampshire, and we sold close to 4,500 condominiums. So, that's a lot of property sales.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't envision that that there's going to be any issue long term with selling in the state of New Hampshire. It's going to continue to be popular.
Perfect. Well, there's a couple of other questions that are kind of much more specific to a certain situation. I can always pass them off to you,
Yeah, but
and order and answer them privately. But I want to thank you for your time. This was wonderful. You're a wealth of information. And I know that if any of these people that were on the webinar today have any questions, I'm sure that they could reach out to you and you'd be happy to chat with them on the side, or help them along with getting their houses sold.
yeah, we've worked with a lot of folks that have moved to the Riverwoods communities, and certainly people that can vouch for us. But also, there's been a lot of folks that have called that have got somebody in mind, and they just wanted my opinion about a question that they might have had. That's fine too. I'm not going to.
That's
When
great.
someone says I've got a friend in the business or a family member in the business, and I've chosen to, I'm not gonna talk somebody out of what a decision they've already made.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. And again, just to remind everybody, has been recorded. Everybody that attended today will get it sent to them, the recording sent to them. And I just want to thank Bill for your time today and your expertise and just giving such a great overview on what's happening. And I always say knowledge is king, and not cash is king, but knowledge is king. And having that knowledge and that understanding will give a lot of these sellers what they need. So thank you.
There was a time when I would have rather been a prince than a king, but at my age, it's king.
There you go. Thank you very much, Bill. Have a great day. And thanks everybody for attending, and you will get a copy of this.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
All
Take
right.
care. Have a
Take
great
care,
day.
Andrea.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.